Well, looking at the latest statistics, it says that the GDP has went up 4.2%. Yet, at the same time, there's been record new unemployment claims that have been the highest they've been in 9 months. New unemployment claims. Yet the GDP is going up. You know, actually, I don't buy the stuff about. I don't know what consists of the GDP if you dig down into the numbers. Maybe the GDP is highly influenced by some of the most ultra wealthy, like Warren Buffett, making $37 million a day. Maybe it's all banker profits. Who knows? Because actually, if you look at other things that are going on, if you look at other industries out there, small manufacturing is disappearing from the United States. Well, we know about the textile industry, that's for sure. But almost all the industries that support the automotive and construction industries are they're being whittled down greatly. And we see this reflection in this proof in the prices of base metals. Like Dr. Copper, they call it Dr. Copper because Dr. Copper is a very good indicator of the overall economy. It's been declining for the last couple of years. And that's talking globally. Now, actually, Chinese banks have been posting more losses too. So it's like the situation doesn't look too good, So anyway, actually, I want to put a little warning out there about some stuff because I know a lot of people used to, or possibly maybe still do, or used to listen to Lindsey Williams about the elite and all this stuff and about how they want to raise oil prices. Now, I also want to put it to you that Vladimir Putin would definitely want to raise oil prices a great deal, okay? Because that is one of their biggest, cash products to get from exports, and that's where they get the foreign cash from, the U.S. dollar from exports. They would love to see oil go way up. Now, I think it is going to go up. I think it is going to go up, to tell you the truth. And it's going to be over a few different things, actually, possibly not just tensions in the Middle East, but, maybe tensions with China. Now, I'm going to interject something here, because if I was an elitist or whatever, and I was playing on the very top of the political spectrum, you know what I'd be doing with the situation in Iran? This sounds like dirty games, but this is what I'd be doing, because this is actually what kind of happened in Iraq. China actually turned out to be one of the biggest benefactors of the oil industry in Iraq. It's a lot of Chinese companies that came in there, like the United States spent the money on the war, but the Chinese companies are actually in there exploiting all the oil. Now, Iran has more oil and actually has a hell of a lot more natural gas. And China is actually starved for, energy, correct? And they're looking over by the Philippines and the Spratly Islands, and they're also looking for those islands over by Japan, off of north of the Ryukyu Islands near Taiwan. Now, so they extended their airspace. Now, if you're actually going to be a really shrewd player in the West, this is dirty pull, but this is what you would do. You should actually, negotiate with the Chinese in secret to actually, invade Iran and take it over, and the Chinese oil companies go in there and they exploit the oil. This way you would see, the only ones that would be bitching about it maybe would be Russia, but they really wouldn't be bitching out about it, because while that was happening, the price of oil would skyrocket and Vladimir Putin would be smiling all the way to the bank, but he used that propaganda at that time against the West as much as possible. I've been kind of thinking about this, and it hasn't played out, but if I was the guy on the top playing the games, that's what I'd be doing. That's what I'd be doing all the way. Because, you're not going to avoid World War III that way, for one. Because actually, if World War III comes about, it's not going to be about in the Middle East. It's going to be something with China, actually, I think, or Russia. It's got to be something big. It's not going to be something over in the Middle East. It's not going to be that. No way in hell. No way in hell. But you also think about it, that can actually diffuse that situation. Dirty pull, but that's probably, that probably might be the best solution. I don't know what these guys do for up there in the planning room, but that's what I'd be doing, man, all the way. That's what I'd be doing all the way. So anyway, gold being below 1,200. Well, actually, I think it's a little above 1,200. You know, they're not going to produce the damn gold anymore at that price. Basically, it's going to become scarce. We all know what's going on. The freaking big guys are accumulating it, and later on, when it goes way up, you're going to get all the pumpers out there, buy at any price, and they're going to be dumping it on you. You know, you always watch what the big guys are doing, and you watch and wait patiently, and then you're going to win out. Basically, that's what happens. You know, it's gold's probably, you know, I don't know about it going $8,000 an ounce right away, but it can easily exceed the $2,000 an ounce. It could, and silver could actually get above that 50 mark in pretty short order. You know, it's going to surprise us. It'll take us by surprise. It's a damn commodity, man. Commodities don't freaking go in a straight line. They go erratic as all hell. That's just how they are. That's just how they are. It's a type of thing most people don't want to get into for that reason. But you know what? When it's this mood is this negative, that's the time you buy it, man. That's the time you buy it. So anyway, you know, it does look like there's a lot more stress on the economy than they're saying. And like I said, I think it's going to come out when the Christmas numbers come out with the retail, because they're not going to be able to ignore those numbers. They could fudge statistics in a lot of ways, but they're going to say, you know, in the retail sector, if they post bad numbers for the Christmas season, I'd almost guarantee you, then, you know, that's it. That's the death nail for taper. Taper, forget about it, man. Forget about it. So actually, I see a lot of things coming up here in 2014. Because, you know, the one biggest danger to the United States, though, is the propaganda that's out there against Western enemies. Because, you know, it's like every freaking alternative media outlet out there, they always blame the Western elite. They always blame the banksters. They always, you know, they usually often blame Jewish people, too. They do that a lot. And, you know, you got to look at the elitists over in Russia and China, and over in Iran too. You know, you think those people all are a bunch of saints? No, they're far worse than the stuff we got over here, by far. You know, so you know, actually, I think the big impetus that's actually going to drive, it's not going to be China wanting to drive the price of oil up. It's going to be Russia or Vladimir Putin himself. That's what I think. China has a very big reason to try to keep the price of oil down, because they import it. Just like Japan doesn't want the price of oil up, you know? And actually, we don't need the damn oil, because I know like companies like Geopolitical have already, you know, probably using that Stanley Myers technology. You know, they've already found out ways to produce cars with can synthesize the hydrogen out of the water. But oil prices is what's going to actually drive up the gold and silver when they go really hyperbolic. And that's always been the way it's always been. Global tensions and high oil prices drive up the metals. And, you know, right now we're looking at oil pushing 100, close to 100, right? It's at 98 or something like that on a WTI. And here we got, you know, freaking gold down at $1,200. So what's the deal? What's the deal? You know, I say it's all price suppression, to tell you the truth. And, you know, I keep linking this one video about, down in the information box, about oil manipulation in the markets, the oil markets being manipulated for the past 10 years, and the metals markets, and lawsuits coming from, you know, heavy-duty players. That, you know, one of them was the head of the NYMEX, too. And, it's not like it's, you know, it's coming from some traders. It's coming from inside people. So there's been a lot of manipulation in the markets. But, you know, the other contention is I think they're going to manipulate them up. That's the other thing. I think they're going to manipulate them up. I think they're going to go way beyond what they should go. That's the other thing. But, you know, there's another freaking big looming monster out there that actually is something where it can actually drive the metals to extreme heights, is the U.S. debt. I mean, it's over $17 trillion, but the thing is, we got more debt per capita than, like, you know, all these countries that are in trouble in Europe. We got more debt per person than all these countries in Europe that are in major problems. And somehow it hasn't affected us. All the numbers are looking rosy. But, I think they're lying with these numbers. Actually, when they're saying the GDP, I'd like to know what the details on the GDP are, because when I look at the hardest hit industries and the industries in the United States that are going away, it's like textiles, manufacturing, construction's down. Actually, construction's not doing good. Now, you might say real estate's kind of picking up in some areas with fewer homes being sold, but at higher prices, but construction's not doing good. That's why the base metals are not doing well either. So how the hell could the economy be doing good in a realistic sense? It's almost like, where is that GDP number actually coming from mainly? Is it coming from the banking sector? More than likely it is, which means that the GDP, and if you just make a little more association, the 1%, or you take the fraction of 1%, they're interconnected with the banking sector, and most of the money and most of the profits and most of the gross domestic product, they call it product, but it's a product that's like air, not even air, it's like nothing. It's actually being given to the people on the very top. The very top echelon are probably making the most of that GDP. Examples like Warren Buffett, $37 million a day. Think about that, right? Think about that. That's 30. All the money he had right there. If it was $1 million a day, you're talking like millions of people having millions of dollars right there that he put in his pocket, basically. It's actually going to the top echelon. That's what's going on with the GDP. So if it's going up 4.2%, that's not what's going on with everybody across the board. Because the other common sense thing out there is that all the smaller industries that actually produce real stuff that people need are actually being exported overseas. They're being destroyed internally, domestically, and we have the highest number of new unemployment applications in 9 months going on right now. And that's, you got to figure, there's a lot of people that dropped off the unemployment rolls, maybe a long time ago too. So, the actual people, the workforce is actually probably decreasing itself. At the same time, the GDP is going up. So I suspect those GDP numbers are highly concentrated in the finance and the banking sector, especially with the fraction of 1% with their income and their portfolios. So anyway, and what I think they're doing? I think they're concentrating, they themselves are concentrating on buying real assets. Probably gold. And there's quite a bit of gold out there to invest in. So gold is actually going to do quite good. But, like I said, I've always been somebody that believed a lot more, not believed more, but I saw there's more fundamental reasons for palladium than gold. And, part of that reason is I actually think that Vladimir Putin and a team of insiders in Russia are, they talk about oil being pushed up. I think palladium is going to be pushed up to extreme heights by that group. They could do it easily. All they have to do is say, for real, we ran out of our Russian stockpiles and palladium will have to skyrocket. Sure, they could replace it with something else eventually, but in the meantime, it can go like a rocket like this and maybe reset. But the point is, it can hit some real good heights, and that's where you want to get them fiat dollars right then, right? Because the game is dollars. The game is dollars. I don't think the dollar's going to go away completely, to tell you the truth. And that's what you're looking for. But you don't want to be holding dollars. You want to be holding gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. You want to be holding that, and oil. So anyway, I think the Russians are actually going to be the key to some of this stuff. But if I was the elitist on the top, I know how I'd be playing it with Iran and China. I know what I'd be doing. That's dirty tricks, but it goes on all the time. But to tell you the truth, that might be a better alternative than China trying to invade, the Spratly Islands or attack Japan or something. That might be a better alternative. That's how I look at it. So, anyway, over and out. So that's all I got to say anyway. So, you know, keep the faith on this bullshit because, you know, I'm saying it like it seems like every freaking 3 years the metals take off like a rocket. It was 2005. It was 2008. And I know they go up and then they go down. When they take off too fast, they go down. 2005, 2008, 2011. 3 years later, it's like waves. 2014. But you know, the thing is, like I said, if it gets too far ahead of itself, there's going to be a gazillion people out there saying it's going to go to like some astronomical height, and I bet you it crashes again. Not to 20, but it'll make a final charge in 2017. That's what I'm thinking.